to our summer webinar series. We are excited that you're joining us today, and we'll continue to have these on Thursday throughout the summer. My name is Jamie Abear, and I have the honor of serving as the Director of Math here at the department. Also on the call with us is Dr. Tashelle White, who will be leading our learning today.
Thank you so much, Jamie. So our objectives for today, we are going to, by the end of this session, you should be able to understand the purpose of Math Refresh, explain components of strong implementation of new math curriculum, and create a comprehensive plan for new implementation that includes teacher collaboration and professional learning. So this is the same presentation that we did present at Teacher Leader Summit at the end of May. So we are going to give you a little bit of time to plan. You may not have your entire team with you, but you will be able to download the note catcher, and that when we give you all time, you can choose to start it or you can share it with those that will make the plans with you. We're going to drop that note catcher in the chat in just a second. So the agenda for today, we have 3 parts of this presentation. First, we're just going to overview the Math Refresh. If you have attended some of our webinars or any of our presentations more recently, I'm sure that you have heard about our Math Refresh initiative. We're very excited about it, so we will overview it just for a few minutes. Then we will go into strong suggestions for strong implementation. Many schools and systems are implementing new curriculums this year, which is why you're here. And so we want to talk through some of the best practices and suggestions for this new implementation to be a strong one. And then finally, we will give you time to ask questions about any of the information that we shared, as well as plan for your new curriculum implementation in your building or system. So Louisiana's Math Refresh initiative. Recently, the department launched a new initiative that we are calling Math Refresh. This Math Refresh will include explicit tools and resources that equip system leaders, school leaders, and teachers to accelerate students' readiness to engage in grade level math in the highest quality teaching and learning environment. To make this a reality for all students, we will strategically focus our support in 2 key areas. 1, providing funding to support a refresh of math materials to ensure resources used during any instructional time. So that includes tutoring, extended learning time, and summer learning are of the same high quality as core instruction. And 2, releasing guidance, resources, and professional learning that supports teachers and students with the opportunity to refresh existing instructional practices to align with evidence-based approaches for maximum impact in getting students on track and moving forward successfully. So as we think about refreshing math in Louisiana, we must clearly understand the approach to accelerating math learning. 2 strategies are typically used to address unfinished learning, often referred to as student struggle in math. 1 is remediation. This is when students practice skills they did not master during previous grades, most often in a manner disconnected from their daily grade level work. The other strategy is learning acceleration, which begins with grade level learning. With acceleration, when learning gaps arise, students engage in just-in-time foundational support that is directly connected to the grade level content that they are learning. Our work is centered on 4 pillars, and all of these pillars are grounded in accelerating learning for all students. High impact structures designed to prioritize access to high quality grade level math instruction for all students. Our second pillar, just-in-time proactive intervention supports that connect prerequisite learning to immediate, upcoming, and current grade level work. Third pillar is ongoing support for teacher collaboration and quality professional learning so that educators have the tools they need for success. And our 4th pillar is acknowledgement of the key role families and communities in supporting math development in our students. So if you do go to our Louisiana Math Refresh page, there are resources under each of these pillars. You can click on the pillars to get to the resources, and we encourage you to check out the resources that are already available, and we are continuously adding to those as the summer continues. Okay, so hopefully now you've gotten a brief overview of Math Refresh. You understand our purpose and the work that we are doing here at the State Department. Now we will move into our suggestions for strong implementation. And so I want you to first just think through your past experiences. If you are implementing a new math curriculum this year, it's probably not your first time that you've had a new curriculum. So think about your past experiences and what were some strong components of curriculum implementation. So if you had to think about the last time you implemented new curriculum, what made it work? What were some things that need to happen or that did happen in order for teachers and students to both be successful? If you're using your note catcher, the three things we wanted you to do is the three things that are in front of your mind, two things that you already have planned, and then one thing that feels really urgent to you. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to jot some things down, and then I'm going to ask for you to share in the chat some of the things that went well whenever you did implement new curriculum. It's been about 2 minutes. If you all have not done so already, please start dropping in some components that made your last implementation strong. I'll start calling those out in the chat. From the chat, ongoing professional development, absolutely. Walkthroughs and feedback. Leadership buy-in, very important. Teacher buy-in, very important. I see people are liking it, so I'm assuming that those are some of the things that you also, fidelity. Yes. Awesome. Well, honestly, so you've all basically gone over what successful new implementation hinges on, the several key factors. So coaching and planning with teachers. So there are three key factors that we're going to go over today from past experiences and what we have learned when implementing new math curriculum. And everything that you all said fits in one of these categories. So the first is professional learning. We mentioned that explicitly, professional development for teachers. The second is clear expectations. And so when I think about that teacher buy-in, that student, that leader buy-in, I think that comes from those clear expectations, whether it is the district and system setting those expectations, that trickles all the way down to the school level. And then finally, the third thing is the plan for teacher collaboration and feedback, which was mentioned often in the chat, or it has a few likes, because it is also a very important key factor when it comes to new implementation. So today we will talk through each of these suggestions or these suggested key factors. And you should have a space, or at this point you should have downloaded the note catcher. If not, we'll give you a second to do that. And in the note catcher, you can use the note catcher to jot down any ideas as we move through the slides. So the first key factor that we're going to talk through is investing in professional learning. So effective professional learning engages teachers and leaders in learning opportunities that are supportive, job embedded, instructionally focused, collaborative, and ongoing. Coordination of professional learning is complex. It is important that both teachers and leaders receive training alongside each other. And so in our experiences, when we have seen implementation to be strong, generally not only are the teachers given professional learning, but also the leaders. And having it alongside each other ensures that we're all on the same page and understand the expectations or understand just the curriculum itself. School systems must coordinate the use of vendors, mentors, and content leaders. And so this professional learning doesn't just stop from the vendor of the curriculum. So we need to make sure that we have mentor teachers that are trained, content leaders that can engage and help us as we move through the year to deliver that professional learning, or to get feedback and let those leaders in charge know what is needed when it comes to implementing this curriculum. So one lesson that has been learned through the years is that it is very important that you have a plan for late hires. So whether it be the responsibility of a mentor teacher or a campus or a system-wide reoccurrence, it is important to plan ahead for this situation. So generally in the past, you typically would do your professional learning in the summer. Early summer, late summer, and then we all know at a school, we can hire a teacher as late as the day before school starts. It's important that we make sure that we have a plan for those teachers that are walking into our buildings. In the past, we've typically put that off until the end of the year, but we know in order for everyone to be on the same page and for curriculum to implementation to be strong, we need to make sure that those teachers are trained immediately, and that it may not be the big training from the vendor, but we can have a mentor teacher that would be assigned, or the content leader. And so a question that I pose to you is, how will if you haven't already, how will the initial training be delivered to those hired once school has started? And what supports could you plan for? So when you think about your new implementation and you're working on your plan for your system or your school, think about those things and make a plan for them now. So quick shout, the second key factor is setting expectations. But before we go into that, we definitely want to give a quick shout out to Louisiana teachers who were quoted as teacher from the RAND Corporation on a recent study. Teachers in Louisiana are doing better than peers in other states in using classroom materials and providing instruction that is aligned with their state standards. I did link the RAND Corporation report. You will have access to this PowerPoint after the presentation, and you please read it. It's great. It's always wonderful to see that our Louisiana teachers are getting national shout outs. But according to the RAND Corporation, Louisiana teachers are using curriculum resources that address our state standards, and they're doing so more than their peers. And so we wanted to take a minute just to highlight that Super App data shows that we are still consistent in our statewide implementation as previous years. If you aren't familiar with Super App, that is the app that school systems do complete for the state for funding, and we do collect information as far as curriculum implementation. And so we do get to look at and evaluate this research to see what curriculum systems are using. And so it has been pretty consistent over the years. So we did break it down for you by grade band. And while some have switched products, we still see that the usage is pretty steady. So with this, knowing that the curriculums are steady, it is important that you communicate your expectations consistently and for all stakeholders, especially in the first year. And so when I think back to what we said at the very first activity we did, and you all listed what made that implementation strong, some of the things you listed were leader buy-in and teacher buy-in. I think setting those clear expectations ahead of time allows for that buy-in to take place when we all know that it's consistent and on the same page. And so our advice from the State Department is to use the curriculum as intended for the first year before allowing for any changes or modifications. And what that means is we know that you will get asked about this. Like when you're questioned about the curriculum, your answer, the curriculums that are rated Tier 1 in Louisiana go through a rigorous review process to ensure that curriculum is rooted in the Louisiana state standards. So when questioned, it's best to provide examples of how the curriculum meets the needs of the standard. And so we know that this is going to happen. We just want to make sure that one, whatever those expectations are, you set them in the beginning and that they're very clear. And when you are questioned about it, you bring them back to the Louisiana state standards, because all curriculums are rooted in our Louisiana state standards. And then finally, our third key factor is create a planning and feedback cycle. So initial training is very important. And once that's received, everyone can be on the same page. We know the expectation, but then we have to ensure that as that year goes on, we are providing support. So create a plan for teacher collaboration that is expected. And so when we think of teacher collaboration, we know that as school leaders, we always want to make time for them to have daily time to plan and collaborate with other teachers. But we also need to ensure that we are doing more of a big picture planning too. And so while daily planning is important, we need to think about offering time or allotting time for teachers to plan for those units, right? Studying those units, getting to know that curriculum, looking at how the lessons progress. So that's not something that teachers are able to do on a daily basis, but it is something that they can maybe do on a quarterly basis. And so we also want you to think about how you can have collaboration for leaders as well. If you're a system leader and you are planning for a whole system-wide implementation of new curriculum, how can you use multiple leaders at different schools to get feedback or to do walkthroughs and just allow them time to plan and talk through what they're seeing and then developing a plan to address it with their teachers in their building. And also, how can you leverage your instructional teams in this process? What support can they offer in terms of planning and feedback? Who will participate in learning walks? What will you do with the data? How can you use data to provide support to address the areas identified through these observations? So just thinking through all of the ways that you can leverage the people that you have in your building is in a school, but also at the district level or system level. And one thing that we do want to point out that we have so we did complete some pilots in the fall and the spring of this year with new Tier 1 curriculum, newly rated Tier 1 curriculum. And one of the things that we do want to point out is that pacing will be an issue. So the first year of implementation, pacing is probably the #1 issue that people do have. And I think that it's a very good idea to just go in and lead with that. Like, address it at the beginning. How can you support this as you move through the semester? Will be a question that you need to make sure that's in the back of your mind. Teachers like when you're real with them, so allowing them to hear you say that pacing will be an issue will give them some reprieve whenever it does become an issue. And so when you think about pacing out for your semesters, think about having those flex days. And thankfully, a lot of the new curriculums do also put in flex days in each of their units. So that should help. But just informing them of that could help some roadblocks to not become roadblocks as they're teaching and instructing students. So just to summarize, The three areas that we talked about and three key factors for new successful implementation is one, professional learning. Invest in it at the beginning. If you haven't already done some or done one for your teachers, please make sure you get that scheduled. But then also making a plan for late hires and thinking about what professional learning you can offer throughout the year. The second, setting clear expectations from the beginning so that everyone's on the same page and keeping with those expectations throughout the year. And then finally, creating a planning and feedback cycle that is not just day to day, but even unit to unit or semester to semester, just more big picture than the day to day, to allow those teachers the time to internalize those lessons and those units so that they understand why they're doing what they're doing on a day to day basis. And finally, we are going to give you some time to ask questions, to plan for your new curriculum. Again, I am not sure how many people from your team are on the call, but just giving you about 5 to 7 minutes to just think through some of the things you may have already planned and done, and then how you can follow up with that. And then if you haven't been able to do some of the things that we discussed, what is your plan for that? So we will give you about 6 minutes, and then we will offer up some time for you all to ask questions. But I am going to leave this slide up for you to see. It's basically going over the things that we've already said. But I did link, and we will drop it in the chat, the Louisiana Academic Content Partner Guide, Professional Learning Partner Guide. If you haven't reached out to a vendor yet to plan your professional learning, this guide does list all of the vendors for professional learning and then what they offer. So if you want to take some time to dig through that and just think through your plan, and we've just left some bullets for you to think about while you work on that. So we will come back in about 6 minutes, and then we'll open it up to questions. All right, we are going to, hopefully you were able to jot down some notes, start thinking through your plan for next year. We do want to open it up to any questions or comments. And myself, along with our director, Jamie, is here to answer any questions. So if you would like to unmute, or you could we'll watch the chat as well. If you have any questions, we are here to answer them, and then we'll close in a few minutes. Also, if anybody would like to share out what they do have planned, or if there was anything that we mentioned or that I mentioned today that stuck out for you that maybe you didn't have a plan for, but now you're thinking about, please unmute and you can share.
Hi, this is Anita, and I'm with Evangeline Parish.
Hi,
Thank you. When I was going through the creative plan, expectations for implementations, what are your non-negotiables? We are moving to Eureka Math Squared for Algebra 1.
okay.
We are piloting that at 3 of our 4 high schools. So my non-negotiable with this is no reverting back to Eureka. I call it 1.0. Stick to the plan. Be intentional. Work it with integrity and intentionality. And know that there's going to be hiccups, but we have to work through them. A little, spoonful of sugar can help us get through all of this. And to do that, our goal is possibly trying to meet at least once a week on a Zoom call with my 3 teachers in the afternoon for them to discuss what's going on with their preparations, since we're not all at the same school. So that's what we're planning on doing and talking about this, because it's new for all of us. And believe me, Teacher Leader Summit, I've heard wonderful things about Eureka Math Squared. And I do thank y'all so much for having those sessions for us.
Oh, you're welcome. I love what you said about having those meetings with those teachers, especially with the pilot. So in the spring of this year, we did do a pilot with Eureka Math Square for Algebra 1, and we held office hours. And I think that, not every time you do something like, or implement a new curriculum, you can do it every week, but just being intentional about hearing what's happening, because when you do go and roll it out to a larger group of people, you can talk about, this was a hiccup that we saw, this is what we did, this is how we fixed it. And so I think it'll be very powerful for you and your teachers to have that time where you're able to really talk through what they're seeing. It might not always be negative, right? It might be positive as well, but you'll be able to take that small scale from the pilot and then roll it out whenever you implement it, everywhere or in every school. What would be some good advice for a first-year teacher breaking into the profession, teaching 8th grade Algebra 1? So Jamie may actually have a different one, but I would say definitely giving them, if you're their leader now, giving them the book. So give them the book for whatever curriculum that you're using, and allowing them to look at their lessons and just internalize those units. So looking at the standards, looking at how they're going to teach things and studying it so that they can see the why. A lot of times when you're new to the profession, we give you the book and we're like, just turn the page. But we want to make sure that we're giving them the opportunity to actually understand the why, because when you do that, we feel, or in our experience, people question a little bit less. So they'll know the why behind it, and then they'll just have time to internalize the lesson and then just anticipate what students may say and do, even being a new teacher. If they've looked at the whole unit, if I'm in unit 2 or lesson 2 and a student starts to question, I know where I'm going in lesson 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and beyond. So I would definitely say if you have new teachers that are coming in the profession and you have access to the materials, definitely give them that. And then one document that I think is just amazing that the department put out long before I got here, so I'm not taking any credit, is the Louisiana Companion Document. Whatever grade level that teacher is teaching in math, give them the companion document, because it lays out all of the standards, how assessment items look, and it's very clear and concise, explaining and giving examples. So I think a new teacher can benefit from looking at that companion document as well as the actual teacher's manual of the book.
I think if I was answering that question, I would say in a new implementation, in a new curriculum, everybody's a new teacher. And so keep that in mind, that as you're making decisions that you move across the year, that this year you're going to have to trust the curriculum more than you ever would have and experience it, so that next year you can make those intentional decisions where you found that there were strengths and weaknesses. Oftentimes we hear, like, especially in first year implementations, people will make particular decisions for particular reasons and get ahead of themselves without realizing it, because they haven't experienced the entire breadth of the year and the way that the math has coherence across the year. So that's the other one thing, is like, in a new implementation, everybody's new. So experience the curriculum first before you make any major shifts or decisions. There's another question in the chat. I heard that Zern will be provided for K-5 students in Louisiana. Will there be professional development for our teachers for this program? So Zern's actually being provided to every K-8 school across Louisiana. And there have been professional learning sessions available throughout last spring, and we actually just wrapped up our last in-person sessions this week, but we do have 2 additional virtual sessions available, and I will drop the information for teachers and leaders in the chat for that in just a minute.
We also, our webinar for next week is also on Zern implementation in Louisiana. So if you haven't registered for that already, please do so, because we will talk through Zern, one as a core curriculum, but also we will really focus on how you can implement Zern alongside any other high quality instructional material. Any other questions, comments? Okay, well, we're going to close with this. So students make meaningful growth when they learn math through a high quality curriculum every day. Teachers have initial and ongoing professional learning to understand effective curriculum implementation. And then also something we didn't really touch on, but just want to leave you with, teachers use authentic data from small-scale curriculum embedded assessments, which measure how well students are meeting the outcomes of their high-quality curriculum. And so just leaving these 3 things in your mind. This is what we want to ensure that you are looking at, thinking about, planning for whenever you are rolling out new curriculum, honestly, any implementation, but of course, new curriculum implementation. If you have any questions around new curriculum implementation, Zern, anything that we've mentioned, how you can get in touch with us is stem@la.gov. So if you want to ask any questions that maybe you didn't feel comfortable asking on the call today, or you want to request an individualized call or support, please email that email address. Again, it's stem@la.gov, and Jamie or myself will get back to you. And we just want to thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy summer schedules to just engage with us around math in Louisiana. We're excited about what our students are going to do this next year. And if you need anything, please, again, reach out to stem@la.gov. Thank you.